What if the greatest science fiction movies of the 1980s were never the famous ones? What if the real creativity lived on the sidelines, overlooked, undermarketed, and quietly forgotten? While everyone remembers the blockbusters, another wave of sci-fi was taking bigger risks, asking sharper questions, and trusting the audience to keep up. These films arrived at the wrong moment, missed their spotlight, and slipped through the cracks. But once you see what they were really doing, you might wonder how they were ever ignored. Number 10. Brother from Another Planet, 1984. At first glance, this movie feels simple. An alien lands on Earth. He looks human. He cannot speak. That setup sounds familiar. But this film does something most sci-fi never even attempts. It slows down and watches what happens next. The alien arrives in Harlem, not a shiny city of the future. No lasers, no spacesuits, just streets, people, and everyday life. Joe Morton carries the entire movie without dialogue, relying on expression, posture, and reaction. And somehow he makes silence louder than words. You understand what he feels before you understand what he is. What makes this movie special is that it never rushes to explain itself. The sci-fi elements stay quiet in the background while the story focuses on what it means to exist as an outsider. The confusion, the curiosity, the way people project their own assumptions onto someone they do not understand. It feels grounded, personal, and strangely timeless. Director John Sayles was never interested in flashy spectacle. He wanted stories about people on the edges. That approach gives this movie a warmth and honesty most science fiction avoids. It is funny without forcing jokes, serious without lectures, and by the end, it leaves you thinking about humanity more than aliens. This is sci-fi that trusts you to feel first and analyze later, and that confidence still holds up. Number 9. The Hidden, 1987. This movie starts like something you have seen 100 times. A crime, a chase, a tough investigator trying to make sense of chaos. Then, without warning, it quietly shifts into something much stranger. The twist is simple, but effective. The real threat is not a person. It is something that moves from body to body, blending into society without being noticed. That idea turns every scene into a guessing game. Anyone could be next. Anyone could already be part of it. What makes this movie work is how confident it feels. Director Jack Shoulder does not over-explain the sci-fi. He lets the story move fast and trusts the audience to keep up. The pacing is tight. The tension never drags. And the performances sell the idea without exaggeration. Kyle MacLachlan brings a calm, unsettling presence that hints there is more going on than he admits. Michael Nouri grounds the film with a performance that feels tired, frustrated, and very human. Their dynamic keeps the story balanced between realism and concept. This film arrived during a decade full of louder sci-fi, and that worked against it. It was not flashy enough to dominate theaters, but it was too smart to be disposable. Over time, it has earned quiet respect from fans who discovered it late. It is the kind of movie that sneaks up on you, and once it does not let go. Number 8. Death Watch, 1980. Long before reality television became unavoidable, this movie imagined where that obsession could lead. And the result is deeply unsettling, even now. The story takes place in a future where illness is rare and death is unusual. That scarcity turns the end of life into something valuable, something marketable. A television network decides to secretly broadcast a woman's final days, turning real suffering into entertainment. The audience never sees her as a person, only as content. Romy Schneider delivers a performance that feels painfully authentic. She is vulnerable without knowing why. Harvey Keitel plays the man recording her life through hidden lenses, slowly unraveling under the weight of what he is doing. The movie does not rush toward shock. It lets discomfort build naturally. What makes Death Watch stand out is how quiet it is. There is no dramatic music pushing emotion, no big speeches explaining the message. It simply shows the process and lets you sit with it. And that makes it more effective than anything loud. When it was released, it confused audiences. It was too dark for casual viewing and too honest for easy praise. But time has been kind to it. Today, it feels eerily accurate. This is sci-fi that predicts the future by studying human behavior, not technology, and that is why it still feels sharp. Number 7. Iceman, 1984. This film does not chase excitement. It does something far riskier. It asks you to slow down. A prehistoric man is discovered frozen in ice and brought back to life. That setup could have gone in many directions. Action, horror, spectacle. Instead, the movie chooses empathy. It treats its central figure not as a curiosity, but as a person displaced in time. John Lone's performance is the heart of the film. He does not rely on exaggeration or gimmicks. His fear feels real. His confusion feels earned. Timothy Hutton plays the scientist who sees beyond the experiment and tries to connect on a human level. Their relationship drives the story. The science fiction here is restrained. The focus stays on culture shock, communication, and dignity. What does it mean to wake up in a world that cannot understand you? And what responsibility do others have toward you? When this movie came out, it struggled to find an audience. There were no major stars, no big set pieces. That made it easy to overlook. But those same qualities allow it to age gracefully. Iceman is thoughtful without being heavy, emotional without manipulation. It is science fiction that respects its subject and its audience, and that makes it quietly powerful. Number 6. Outland, 1981. This movie has often been described as a Western in space, and that description fits. But it undersells what makes it interesting. Sean Connery plays a lawman stationed at a mining colony far from Earth. The environment is harsh, the work is brutal, and rules only matter if someone is willing to enforce them. The story unfolds slowly, building tension through atmosphere rather than noise. What makes Outland stand apart is its tone. It feels grounded. The future is not shiny or clean. It is industrial, worn, and indifferent. People are tired, systems are flawed, and justice is not guaranteed. Connery brings a quiet authority to the role. He does not rely on charm. He feels weary, determined, and isolated. Francis Sternhagen adds sharp wit and emotional balance, making their scenes some of the most memorable in the film. Audiences at the time expected faster thrills. That worked against it. But viewed today, the patience feels refreshing. The movie trusts its mood and never rushes resolution. Outland is not about action. It is about standing alone when systems fail, and that theme gives it weight that has only grown with time. Number 5. Dreamscape, 1984. Before dream worlds became sleek and polished, this movie imagined them as chaotic, unpredictable, and slightly dangerous. And that is exactly why it still works. The story follows a man with psychic abilities who gets pulled into a government project that allows people to enter dreams. At first, it feels like a clever experiment, but the moment power gets involved, the idea starts bending in uncomfortable directions. Dreams become spaces for influence, control, and consequences no one fully understands. Dennis Quaid plays the lead with a mix of charm and skepticism that keeps the film grounded. He does not act like a chosen hero. He feels like someone constantly trying to stay ahead of something bigger than himself. The dream sequences are imaginative without being overwhelming. They feel handmade, strange, and personal. What makes Dreamscape stand out is its balance. It blends science fiction, suspense, and moments of genuine humor without losing focus. The Cold War tension of the era quietly shapes the story, giving it an edge that feels rooted in real anxiety. When it was released, it struggled to compete with louder blockbusters. But over time, viewers began to appreciate its creativity and confidence. It dares to be playful and unsettling at the same time. This is the kind of sci-fi that feels like a conversation with the audience, and that makes it endlessly watchable. Number 4. The Lathe of Heaven, 1980. Some science fiction tries to impress you with visuals. This one impresses you with ideas. The story centers on a man whose dreams alter reality. Every time he sleeps, the world shifts to match what he dreamed. At first, the changes seem helpful. Problems disappear, conflicts resolve. But reality never improves without cost. What makes this film remarkable is its restraint. Made for television, it works with minimal effects and a quiet pace. Instead of spectacle, it leans into philosophy. Who decides what a better world looks like? And what happens when good intentions rewrite lives without permission? Bruce Davison gives a deeply human performance as someone terrified of his own mind. His psychiatrist, played with unsettling confidence, sees opportunity instead of danger. That imbalance drives the tension forward. The movie trusts the audience to engage. It does not spell things out. It allows consequences to unfold naturally. That patience makes every shift in reality feel heavier. When it aired, it flew under the radar. But critics and writers later recognized its intelligence. It remains one of the most thoughtful explorations of control and morality in science fiction. This is a movie that proves imagination matters more than budget. And once it gets into your head, it stays there. Number 3. Brainstorm, 1983. This film asks a question that still feels bold. What if human experience could be recorded and shared exactly as it happened? Scientists develop a device that captures thoughts, emotions, and sensations, allowing others to relive them. At first, it feels miraculous, a way to understand one another better. But once the technology expands, the consequences grow darker and more complex. Christopher Walken plays a researcher pulled between curiosity and caution. His performance is controlled and thoughtful, grounding the film even as the ideas grow bigger. Natalie Wood delivers a warm, human presence that keeps the story emotionally anchored. What sets Brainstorm apart is its emotional focus. The technology is impressive, but the heart of the film lies in how people respond to it. The desire to understand life. The fear of crossing lines that cannot be undone. Production issues and real-life tragedy distracted audiences when it was released. That overshadowed the film's strengths. But viewed now, it feels surprisingly modern. The movie does not chase shock. It builds meaning through connection and reflection. It asks what happens when knowledge outpaces wisdom. Brainstorm is not flashy. It is sincere, curious, and quietly ambitious. And that is why it deserves a second look. Number 2. The Quiet Earth, 1985. Few movies capture isolation the way this one does. Not as adventure, not as freedom, but as something deeply unsettling. A scientist wakes up to find the world empty. Cars sit abandoned. Radios hum without voices. There is no explanation, just silence. The film takes its time letting that emptiness sink in. Bruno Lawrence carries nearly the entire movie alone, and he does it with remarkable control. His character cycles through curiosity, excitement, fear, and eventual despair. Watching that progression feels honest. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is exaggerated. As the story unfolds, the film shifts from survival into psychology. What happens when there is no one left to witness your choices, when purpose disappears? The science fiction remains present, but it never overshadows the human experience. This movie influenced countless later stories, even if it rarely gets credit. Its approach feels raw and intimate. There are no easy answers, no comforting resolutions. Over time, it has earned praise from scientists and filmmakers alike for its realism and emotional clarity. That respect feels earned. The Quiet Earth is not loud. It does not demand attention. It invites reflection. And once it does, it leaves a mark that is hard to shake. Number 1. Altered States, 1980. At the top of this list is a movie that refuses to behave. Altered States follows a scientist obsessed with understanding human consciousness. His experiments begin in controlled environments, but curiosity quickly pushes him further. The deeper he goes, the more unstable his reality becomes. William Hurt commits completely to the role, delivering a performance that feels intense without feeling theatrical. You believe his obsession. You believe his fear. The film does not hold your hand. It throws you into unfamiliar territory and lets you experience the confusion firsthand. Director Ken Russell embraces chaos. The visuals are bold, strange, and sometimes overwhelming. But beneath the surface, there is a genuine question driving everything. What happens when science tries to answer questions meant for experience rather than explanation? This movie divided audiences when it was released. Some admired its ambition, others found it unsettling. But that division is exactly why it endures. It takes risks modern sci-fi often avoids. Altered States is messy, fearless, and unforgettable. It represents a moment when science fiction trusted audiences to wrestle with ideas instead of consuming them passively. That boldness earns it the top spot. So maybe the best science fiction of the 1980s was never meant to be obvious. Maybe it was hiding in smaller releases, strange ideas, and films that trusted you to think. If one of these surprised you, share it. If you have your own forgotten favorite, drop it in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the movies history forgot but imagination never did, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes the future was already written. We just stopped paying attention.